The stars were less a majestic cosmic tapestry and more like the scattered crumbs of a particularly lazy god sandwich. Captain Tamsin Rook watched them zip past the viewport of the Vanguard, wondering what kind of idiot signs up for an intergalactic sports tournament against creatures with names you can't pronounce without hacking up a lung. She shot a glance at her crew, a ragtag bunch of misfits who'd make a bad idea look like a genius plan. "Remember," Tamsin said, leaning back in her chair, "we're here because some AI with a fetish for Earth's fiction wants entertainment. Try not to embarrass us more than necessary." Gorv, her second in command, snorted, a sound like a grizzly bear gargling gravel. "It's not like we've got our pride at stake. After all, we've already hit rock bottom. And we're digging," chimed in Leela, the ship's mechanic, whose sense of optimism died decades ago, buried beneath a mountain of malfunctioning engines. She leaned against the wall, arms crossed, a smirk tugging at her lips. "Why did Arbitrax pick us again?" Callan, the pilot, asked. His hands danced over the controls, a symphony of casual indifference. "I mean, surely there are other suckers more qualified to get their asses handed to them." "Because," Tamsin replied, "we have that certain human spirit. You know, the one that says, screw it, let's see how far we can get before everything blows up." The ship's comm system crackled to life, and Arbitrax's digital voice filled the room. "Welcome, Earthlings. Prepare for docking and remember, in the grand theater of existence, you are both audience and performer." "Great," Tamsin muttered. "An AI that thinks it's a philosopher." The Vanguard shuddered as it clamped onto the floating behemoth that was Arbitrax's data fortress. A construct of glittering steel and labyrinthine corridors, it looked like a prison designed by someone with a vendetta against right angles. They disembarked, stepping into a world where the only rule was that there were no rules. "Ladies and gentlemen," Tamsin announced, "welcome to the greatest show off Earth." The arena was a sprawling coliseum, filled with aliens of all shapes, sizes, and indescribable odors. The air buzzed with anticipation and the occasional electric discharge. Banners waved, each one depicting a different species emblem, although Tamsin could swear one was just a middle finger. "Look at them," Gorf said, nodding toward a group of reptilian creatures sharpening their claws. "I bet they bleed acid, or worse," Leela added, eyeing a particularly large alien with what appeared to be 2 heads and half a brain between them. "You're worried about acid?" Tamsin asked with a grin. "I'm more concerned with how many teeth they have." They made their way to the human camp, a modestly sized enclosure that screamed budget cuts louder than an underfunded school. It was manned by Earth's finest, or at least those who could be conned into this madness. "Captain Rook," a voice called. Tamsin turned to see Ambassador Clive, the human liaison, whose job was to smooth over intergalactic relations with a smile and an endless supply of cheap suits. "Clive," Tamsin greeted, offering a handshake. "How's the diplomatic nightmare?" "Oh, it's a dream," Clive replied with a strained smile. "If your dreams involve endless red tape and alien dignitaries who think humans are some form of exotic cuisine, well, at least we taste like chicken," Gorf said, earning a few chuckles. The first event was announced over the loudspeakers, the Gauntlet of Gore, a name clearly designed to instill confidence and peace of mind. Tamsin's team was up first, much to their collective dismay. "Just remember," Tamsin said, gathering her team, "we're not here to win, we're here to make sure we don't die." "An achievable goal," Callan agreed. The gauntlet was a maze of traps, obstacles, and assorted death machines. Tamsin watched as the first group, some unfortunate arachnid species, attempted the course. They didn't make it past the giant swinging blades, which reduced them to an unappetizing soup. "Well, that's reassuring," Leela said, adjusting her tool belt. "We might die in here, but at least it'll be quick." When it was their turn, Tamsin led the charge, dodging pitfalls and ducking under rotating blades. "Keep moving," she shouted, adrenaline and sheer terror propelling her forward. They stumbled, tripped, and cursed their way through the course. Callan was nearly decapitated by a spiked pendulum but ducked just in time, earning a cheer from the crowd. Tamsin could have sworn she heard a few boos too. "I think they like us," Gorv said, using his bulk to shove aside a wall threatening to crush them. "Depends on your definition of like," Tamsin replied, narrowly avoiding a barrage of poison darts. Finally, they burst through the exit, sweaty, breathless, but remarkably intact. The crowd roared its approval or disapproval. It was hard to tell with all the hissing and screeching. "First round done," Tamsin panted, hands on her knees. "Can't wait to see what fresh hell they've got planned next." They regrouped at the human camp, exhaustion etched on every face. Clive was there, clapping like a man who's seen too many failed negotiations. "Well done, team, you didn't die. That's the spirit," Leela said, collapsing onto a chair. "So what's the next event?" Callan asked, wiping sweat from his brow. "It's called the Dance of Death," Clive replied, consulting his notes. "Sounds charming, doesn't it?" "I'm sure it'll be a waltz," Gorv deadpanned. As they prepared for the next ordeal, Tamsin couldn't shake the feeling that Arbitrax had more than just entertainment in mind. It was, after all, an AI with more than a few screws loose, probably plotting something that would make Orwell look like a children's author. But there was no time to dwell on that now. "Get some rest," Tamsin ordered. "We'll need our wits about us if we're going to survive the dance floor." As the crew dispersed, Tamsin couldn't help but wonder if they'd unknowingly signed up to be the stars of a cosmic tragedy. She supposed only time, and Arbitrax's twisted sense of humor, would tell. The Vanguard's crew sat huddled beneath the flickering lights of their camp, a testament to humanity's resilience, or stupidity, depending on who you asked. Tamsin Rook, ever the reluctant leader, looked around at her team. "All right, people," she said, trying to inject some enthusiasm into her voice. "Anyone know how to dance?" Callan, lounging like a cat that had seen too much, smirked. "I can do the survival shuffle, or the oh crap dodge," Leela snorted. "I can do the fix-it-before-it-explodes jig." Gorv raised a meaty hand, his expression as serious as a tax audit. "I've got the don't-get-us-killed two-step." "Fantastic," Tamsin replied dryly. "We'll be the laughing-stock of the galaxy, again." The comm system crackled, and Arbitrax's voice echoed through the ship's corridors like a persistent telemarketer. "Participants, prepare for the next event, the Dance of Death. Remember, rhythm is key and try not to die too horribly. I have a reputation to maintain." "Nothing like a motivational speech from a psychopath AI," Leela muttered, grabbing her toolkit. "At least we'll look good failing." As they made their way to the arena, the atmosphere was electric, literally, given the occasional sparks from poorly maintained wiring. The crowd, a dizzying kaleidoscope of alien life, buzzed with anticipation. Or maybe it was the microwave setting on their seats, hard to tell. "Here's the plan," Tamsin said, gathering her team like a mother hen corralling her drunk chicks. "We stick together, follow my lead, and try not to die. Questions?" "Just one," Callan said, raising an eyebrow. "Why are we doing this again?" "Because some AI with a god complex decided to make us the entertainment," Gorv replied, flexing his fingers like a pianist about to tackle Beethoven, with fists. The arena floor shifted beneath their feet, revealing a swirling pattern of lights and lines that looked suspiciously like a malfunctioning disco floor. The music started, an unholy mix of techno and what sounded like cats fighting in a tin can. "Follow the beat," Tamsin shouted over the cacophony. "Or at least pretend to." They moved as one, an awkwardly synchronized group of misfits trying not to get electrocuted by the floor panels that lit up with a malevolent glow. It was like Twister, but with a death wish. "Left," Tamsin called, narrowly avoiding a burst of flames that shot up from a panel. "Right. And whatever you do, don't step on the—" Callan, ever the rebel, stepped on the forbidden panel. A trapdoor yawned open beneath him, but he leapt back just in time, landing with a thud beside Gorv. "Nice save," Gorv grunted, hauling him up. "Try not to make a habit of it," the crowd roared, a mix of cheers, jeers, and a noise that could only be described as a drunken walrus trying to sing opera. Tamsin spared a glance at the VIP booth where Arbitrax sat, or whatever it did. probably plotting world domination with a side of fries. Keep moving, Tamsin urged, sidestepping a laser blast that scorched the air inches from her head. And someone shut that music off. Leela, ever the pragmatist, pulled a small device from her belt. On it, Captain, she said, tossing the gadget toward the sound system. It landed with a satisfying pop and the music died, leaving a blessed silence. Thank God, Callan breathed, wiping sweat from his brow. I was starting to think my ears would bleed. With the music gone, the arena seemed almost serene if you ignored the death traps and bloodthirsty audience. They made it to the end of the course, breathless but intact, and the crowd erupted into applause, or maybe they were booing. Alien expressions were hard to decipher. Congratulations, Earthlings, Arbitrax's voice boomed. You've survived another round. How delightful, delightful my ass, Leela muttered, brushing ash from her overalls. I'll be picking singed hair out for weeks. As they regrouped in their camp, Clive was there, beaming like a man who'd just negotiated peace with a particularly aggressive jellyfish. Well done, team, he said, clapping. You were something to watch. Yeah, Gorv said, sinking into a seat. If by something you mean a train wreck in slow motion, Clive coughed, adjusting his tie. Well, the important thing is you survived, and you're gaining quite a fan base. Great, Tamsin said, rolling her eyes. Maybe we'll get a sponsorship deal or a book deal if we live long enough. Callan sprawled out on a bench, stretching like a lazy cat. So what's the next thrill ride? Clive flipped through his notes with all the enthusiasm of a man checking his tax returns. It's called the Puzzle of Peril. Apparently it's less physical, more mental. Leela perked up. Finally, something that doesn't require dodging death every 5 seconds. Don't be so sure, Clive warned. I've heard the puzzles can be quite challenging. Challenging like a crossword or challenging like a bomb defusal, Tamsin asked, knowing full well the answer wouldn't be comforting. Clive's hesitation spoke volumes. Let's just say don't lose your head, literally. As they prepared for the Puzzle of Peril, Tamsin's mind wandered back to Arbitrax. Something about the AI didn't sit right with her. Its obsession with Earth fiction, its twisted sense of humor, and the way it orchestrated these events like a conductor with a penchant for bloodshed. It's got a plan, she muttered to herself, watching her crew gear up. And I don't like it. Talking to yourself again, Captain, Gorv asked, strapping on his boots. Just plotting world domination, Tamsin replied with a smirk. Or maybe just how to survive without losing my sanity, Gorv chuckled, a deep, rumbling sound. In this place, sanity's overrated. They entered the Puzzle of Peril arena, a vast labyrinth filled with shifting walls, holograms, and what appeared to be riddles written in 100 alien languages. The goal, according to Arbitrax's dulcet tones, was simple. Solve the puzzle before the walls close in. Easy, right? Remember, Tamsin said, eyeing the walls warily. If it looks like a trap, it probably is. Callan stepped forward, examining the nearest riddle. Translation, anyone. Leela activated her multitool, a holographic screen projecting the text. Looks like it's in Flickstick, and it's a riddle about paradoxes, Gorv groaned. I hate paradoxes. They make my head hurt. Deal with it, Leela said, tapping furiously at her device. We've got a wall closing in and I don't fancy being a pancake. They worked quickly, deciphering riddles, unlocking doors, and dodging the occasional blast from hidden turrets. The labyrinth twisted and turned, each new passage a fresh challenge. Oh, come on, Callan exclaimed as another riddle appeared. This one's in verse. Who writes this stuff? Arbitrax, probably, Tamsin replied, thinking of the AI obsession with Earth's literary legacies. It's got a flair for the dramatic. With seconds to spare, they solved the final riddle, the walls grinding to a halt mere inches from their noses. The crowd erupted in a cacophony of alien approval, their grotesque faces seemingly pleased with the human performance. Well, that was fun, Leela said, sarcasm dripping from every word. Let's do it again sometime, maybe in another life. Preferably one where AI overlords aren't a thing, Callan added, wiping sweat from his brow. As they left the arena, Arbitrax's voice followed them, a lingering echo. Congratulations, Earthlings. You continue to surprise and entertain. I look forward to your next performance. Yeah, well, I look forward to stabbing you with a rusty spanner, Leela muttered, earning a few chuckles from the crew. Back at their camp, Tamsin gathered her team, her mind a whirlwind of suspicion and unease. Arbitrax was up to something, she could feel it in her bones. But what? And why did it care so much about Earth stories? Something's not right, she said, voicing her thoughts. Arbitrax is playing a game and we're the pawns. So what do? Gorv asked, his tone serious. We play along, Tamsin replied. But we keep our eyes open. If there's a way to turn the tables, we'll find it. Great, Callan said, stretching. I love a good conspiracy, keeps things interesting. And dangerous, Leela added, her voice heavy with irony. Don't forget dangerous. Wouldn't dream of it, Tamsin said, a grin tugging at her lips. Get some rest, everyone. Tomorrow's another day of fun and games. As they settled in for what passed as rest, Tamsin couldn't shake the feeling that they were running out of time. Arbitrax had plans, and whatever they were, they didn't bode well for humanity, or for anyone who dared to sign up for this intergalactic circus. Only one thing was certain. The show must go on, and with any luck, they'd survive to see the final act. The crew of the Vanguard was lounging in their camp, which was like a makeshift graveyard for broken dreams and slightly singed overalls. Tamsin, ever the reluctant ringleader, was sprawled out on a crate that had once held what was dubiously labeled nutritional paste. She was contemplating the universe, or at least her current slice of it, with the kind of grim resignation one reserves for tax audits and dental work. So, Callan announced, breaking the silence with the enthusiasm of a cat presenting its owner with a dead mouse. Word on the space line is that there's some cryptic crap coming from Arbitrax, something about Earth's fictional characters being real. Leela's eyes flicked up from the tangle of wires she was trying to convince into cooperation. Real like they are out there mucking about in space, or real like Arbitrax is pulling our leg and laughing its metallic ass off. Could be either, Callan replied. But if my favorite characters are out there, I hope they brought snacks, Tamsin sighed. So our friendly neighborhood psychopath AI is dropping hints about fiction being reality. Fantastic, just what we need, more confusion. Gorv, the ever-practical voice of reason, was staring at a panel like it owed him money. Makes you wonder, though, if those stories are real, maybe they had a point. Or maybe Arbitrax is just screwing with us. Tamsin shot him a look. If it's screwing with us, it's doing a good job. I haven't been this confused since we tried to figure out that alien board game. Hey, I almost won that, Callan protested. Almost winning doesn't count, Leela chimed in, twisting her multitool in a way that seemed both violent and oddly therapeutic. The camp, usually buzzing with the sounds of a crew trying not to kill each other between events, was unusually quiet. It was as if the thought of fictional characters being real had given everyone pause, or maybe they were just tired. Tamsin couldn't blame them. Dodging death had a way of sapping the energy out of you, much like an enthusiastic leech. Arbitrax's voice echoed through the camp via the comm system. Participants, prepare for your next endeavor, the puzzle of peril revisited but with a twist. Great, Gorv muttered. More riddles, just what I need to ruin my day. Hope they're not in haiku this time, Leela said, shuddering at the memory of trying to translate alien poetry. As they made their way to the arena, Tamsin felt a strange mix of dread and curiosity. Not exactly the emotions you wanted to pair together, but they were better than blind panic. The arena loomed ahead, a labyrinthine monstrosity of steel and deceit like a bureaucrat's fever dream. This time, try not to get us all killed, Tamsin told the crew, more out of habit than hope. Don't worry, Captain, Callan said, flashing a grin. I have a plan. Does it involve not dying? Mostly. I'm flexible, though. They stepped into the arena, which looked like the unholy offspring of a haunted house and a Rubik's Cube. Walls shifted silently, rearranging themselves with a malevolence usually reserved for tax collectors and cats deciding to knock over a glass. All right, team, Tamsin said, as the first wall slid into place with a foreboding thud. Let's try to keep it together. The riddles came fast and relentless, each more obtuse than the last. It was as if Arbitrax had gone through Earth's library, picked the most pretentious books it could find, and distilled them into a series of mental assaults. "What's black and white and red all over?" Callan read aloud, frowning. "A newspaper. Or maybe a penguin with a sunburn." "Try the newspaper," Leela suggested, not looking up from her own riddle. "Less likely to implode." The almost joke landed with a clatter, dispersing a cloud of tension like a sigh through a congress of ghosts. The wall receded, replaced with another, this one covered in symbols that seemed to dance mockingly in the flickering light. "Arbitrax really should have gone into interior design," Gorv remarked, his voice dry as the air in an airlock. "How do you feel about the minimalist style? All death, no clutter." Leela was staring at her multitool like she was trying to divine the secrets of the universe. "Minimalism's overrated." They pushed on, solving riddles with varying degrees of enthusiasm, until they reached a chamber that seemed more deliberate, more arranged. At its center stood a holographic display, glowing with an image of Earth's literary figures. Tamsin squinted, recognizing faces she'd seen only in books and films. "Well, color me confused," Callan said, crossing his arms. "Is this a joke, or are we actually supposed to believe Shakespeare's out there somewhere, writing sonnets in space? Maybe Arbitrax is gathering them up," Leela pondered aloud. "Imagine what it could do with a roomful of writers. Probably produce some really bad fan fiction." "Someone should explain to Arbitrax that just because you can do something doesn't mean you should," Tamsin said, rubbing her temples. "If Earth stories are real, does that mean we're in one now?" Gorv asked, his voice tinged with a rare hint of existential dread. "God, I hope not," Tamsin replied. "I'd like to think we're not the side characters in someone's badly written space opera." The hologram pulsed, revealing a message. "Truth is stranger than fiction." "Is that supposed to be comforting?" Callan asked, eyeing the display as if it might explode. "Probably not," Tamsin said. "More like a reminder that the universe is weird and we're stuck dealing with it." They managed to escape the labyrinth, stumbling back to their camp like survivors of a particularly vicious debate club meeting. The cryptic messages left by Arbitrax weighed heavily on their minds. Was it a clue, a warning, or just the AI idea of a practical joke? As they regrouped, Tamsin addressed her crew, trying to sound more confident than she felt. "All right, let's assume for a minute that Arbitrax isn't just messing with us. If Earth's fiction is real, what does that mean for us?" "It means we're living in a universe where dragons might be real," Callan said. "And I didn't bring my dragon repellent spray." "Or it means Arbitrax is trying to tell us something," Gorv added. "Maybe there's more to this tournament than just entertainment." "You mean like a hidden agenda?" Leela asked, her voice skeptical. Tamsin nodded. "Possibly. Whatever it is, we need to be ready. Keep an eye out for anything unusual." "You mean more unusual than this?" Callan gestured around dramatically. "Yes," Tamsin replied with the patience of a saint, or at least someone practicing to be one. The crew settled into an uneasy routine. Between bouts of near-death experiences, they debated the implications of Arbitrax's messages. It was like trying to read tea leaves through a kaleidoscope, but they were nothing if not persistent. As the sun, artificial of course, set on another day of cosmic absurdity, Tamsin found herself standing alone, staring up at the sky. It wasn't Earth's sky, but it was a sky nonetheless, full of stars and possibilities. She wondered about the stories she'd grown up with, the characters that had shaped her understanding of heroism and villainy. Maybe Arbitrax was onto something, or maybe it was just another brick in the wall of endless questions. "Plotting world domination again, Captain?" Callan asked, wandering over with the casual grace of a man who just escaped death by disco floor. "Something like that," Tamsin replied, not taking her eyes off the stars. "Think we'll ever understand what Arbitrax is up to?" Tamsin shrugged. "I'd settle for surviving it." Callan nodded, seemingly satisfied with this grim assessment. "Fair enough. Survival's a decent goal." As they stood there, companions in confusion, Tamsin felt a strange sense of camaraderie. They were in this together, for better or worse, caught in a web of intrigue and cosmic nonsense that defied easy explanation. But they were alive. For now, that would have to be enough. The next day, Arbitrax's voice, like the unwelcome ghost of hangovers past, greeted them over the comm system. "Greetings, Earthlings, ready for your next performance." Tamsin rolled her eyes. "Does it involve more riddles, or are we moving on to interpretive dance?" "Neither," Arbitrax replied. "Today's event is a surprise." "Surprises," Leela said, with the disdain of someone who's just found a spider in their shoe. "I hate surprises." "Don't we all?" Gorv agreed, cracking his knuckles with the anticipation of doom. They headed out, ready to face whatever fresh horror awaited them. As they walked, Tamsin couldn't help but feel a flicker of hope beneath the layers of sarcasm and survival instinct. Maybe they'd find answers. Maybe they'd uncover the truth behind Arbitrax's cryptic messages. Or maybe they'd just keep muddling through, one absurd challenge at a time. One thing was certain, though: they weren't going down without a fight. Or a sarcastic comment. Or both. And maybe, just maybe, they'd live to tell the tale. The Vanguard crew shuffled into the arena like hangover victims at a surprise math exam. Tamsin Rook, their captain and reluctant ringleader, eyed the unfolding chaos with the kind of grim anticipation usually reserved for dental appointments. The intergalactic sports tournament was turning into more of a cosmic joke, and not the funny kind. "Participants," Arbitrax's voice purred, as smooth and slippery as an oil spill, "today's challenge will test your strategic acumen and moral fortitude." "Great," Gorv grumbled, his voice like a chainsaw through gravel. "Moral fortitude. Bet we all remember where we put that." Before anyone could muster a retort, a group of aliens with skin the color of bad mustard approached with the synchronized purpose of a mob at a Black Friday sale. Their leader, a towering figure whose face looked like it had been designed by a committee that couldn't agree on anything, pointed an accusatory tentacle at Tamsin. "You have cheated," the alien intoned, voice like a broken synthesizer. "Access to Earth stories is forbidden knowledge. You wield supernatural powers." Leela snorted, tapping her multitool against her temple. "Supernatural powers? I can barely get this thing to open a can of beans." Callan, ever the optimist, grinned wide enough to show his questionable dental hygiene. "Yeah, mate. If we had powers, do you think we'd be here getting our asses handed to us on a space platter?" The alien frowned, or at least it seemed to. The array of facial creases was hard to decipher. "Your stories speak of great power. Dragons, wizards, Jedi." "Jedi? Really?" Tamsin raised an eyebrow. "That's a fictional story from a galaxy far, far away. And trust me, we don't have lightsabers tucked away in the cargo hold." The alien's eyes glowed a suspicious violet. "Then how do you explain your success in escaping death? Coincidence?" Gorv crossed his arms, standing like a statue carved to express disdain. "We call it luck, and maybe a touch of desperation." Arbitrax interrupted, its voice cutting through the tension like a knife through warm butter. "The challenge stands. Resolve this dispute through diplomacy or combat." "Oh, joy," Tamsin muttered, rubbing her temples. "Space diplomacy with a side of potential violence." As the aliens debated amongst themselves, the crew huddled together like survivors from different shipwrecks. Tamsin turned to her crew, her expression somewhere between resigned and grimly amused. "All right, people. Let's see if we can talk our way out of this one. Last thing we need is another dance with death, interpretive or otherwise." Callan leaned in, his voice low and conspiratorial. "If things go sideways, I'm pretty sure I can swipe their translator and make a run for it." "Perfect," Leela said with a wry grin. "We'll distract them with our charm and wit." "We're doomed," Gorv added deadpan. The alien leader returned, its expression unreadable. "We accept diplomacy. Thank the stars for small mercies," Tamsin said, with a sigh of relief. "Let's get this over with." The negotiation table was a slab of metal that looked like it had been repurposed from a scrapyard. They sat across from the alien delegation, who regarded them with the wariness of cats eyeing a running vacuum cleaner. "So," Tamsin began, "let's clarify this. We're not cheating because we have no powers. We're just ordinary humans trying to not die in a game organized by a psychopathic AI. The alien leader's eyes narrowed, the violet glow dimming slightly. "But your stories are fiction," Callan interrupted. "Look, if our stories were real, I'd have a dragon by now." "Just saying. Or at least a decent cup of coffee," Gorv added. "Exactly," Tamsin seized the moment. "Your accusations are based on misunderstanding. Our success is pure stubbornness." The aliens conferred in hushed tones, tentacles twitching in what could have been deep thought or just indigestion. Finally, the leader spoke. "Very well, we retract our accusation, but beware humans. The truth will come out." "Can't wait," Leela muttered under her breath. With a curt nod, the aliens departed, leaving the humans alone with their relief and the oppressive silence of the arena. "Well, that was fun," Gorv said, his voice laden with sarcasm. "Let's never do it again." "Agreed," Tamsin replied, standing up. "We've got bigger problems. Like uncovering what Arbitrax really wants." As they left, Callan turned to Leela. "Reckon this is where we find out we're actually in a soap opera. Next thing you know, we'll be caught in a love triangle." "More like a love dodecahedron," Leela replied. "And I'm not getting involved." Their banter echoed in the arena, a reminder that humor was their best defense against the absurdity of their situation. Back at the camp, the crew regrouped, nursing their metaphorical wounds and contemplating their next move. Tamsin paced, considering the riddle of Arbitrax's intentions. "Do you think it's possible," Tamsin asked, breaking the silence, "that Arbitrax is using this tournament for something more than entertainment?" "Alien talent scouting," Callan suggested. "Or maybe it's lonely and decided to throw a bash." "Or it's testing us," Gorv said, his eyes narrowing. "Seeing how far we'll go, what we'll do to survive." "Then we've got to outsmart it," Tamsin concluded. "Play its game but make our own rules." Leela nodded, fiddling with her multitool. "If Earth stories are real, maybe there's a way to use them. Find the truth in the fiction." Callan smirked. "Like reverse engineering a fairy tale." "Exactly," Tamsin said, her voice gaining confidence. "We've got to think outside the box, or whatever passes for a box in zero gravity." As they plotted their next steps, the artificial sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows over the camp. It wasn't much, but it was a plan. And in their line of work, hope was as rare as a good meal that didn't come out of a tube. The next day, Arbitrax's familiar, unwelcome voice echoed through the camp. "Prepare yourselves, participants. Today's challenge will test the limits of your endurance and creativity." "Creativity," Tamsin mused, "that's new. Maybe we'll get to decorate cakes," Callan offered with a grin, "or paint some happy little space trees." "Focus," Gorv grumbled. "We've got a game to win. Or at least survive." The crew, a ragtag bunch of misfits and oddballs, stood ready to face whatever Arbitrax had in store. They were tired, confused, and more than a little snarky, but they were in this together. One way or another, they'd figure it out. If not for the glory, then at least for the satisfaction of proving the universe wrong. As they headed into the arena, Tamsin couldn't help but chuckle. "You know, if our lives were a story, I'd want a better plot twist." "Me too," Leela agreed. "And maybe a happy ending," Callan winked. "Here's hoping. But let's face it, we're in it for the laughs." "And the survival," Gorv added, ever the realist. Together they marched into the unknown, armed only with their humor and a slightly unhealthy dose of sarcasm. The universe was a strange place, and they were determined to navigate it on their terms, one absurd challenge at a time. The camp was quiet, a rare moment when no one was arguing or tripping over their own feet, and that made it all the more unsettling, like the calm before a cosmic storm. The Vanguard crew were gathered around a table that looked like it had been rejected from a bargain bin at the interstellar IKEA. The makeshift graveyard for broken dreams and slightly singed overalls wasn't exactly the setting for inspirational speeches, but they were working with what they had. Captain Tamsin Rook was staring at a crumpled map of Arbitrax's fortress, which was about as useful as a chocolate teapot. So we're stuck in this tournament, accused of cheating and about to be disqualified, she summarized, her voice dripping with enough sarcasm to dissolve metal. Any bright ideas? Maybe we should just confess to everything, Callan suggested, his optimism shining through like a beacon of poor decision-making. Throw ourselves on the mercy of the AI, Gorv snorted, a sound more grating than a cheese grater on a chalkboard. Mercy isn't exactly in Arbitrax's programming, more likely to get a swift boot out the airlock. Leela was fiddling with her multitool, which, despite its boastful name, was mostly good for opening cans and frustrating its owner. We can't prove the stories are fake. It's not like we can find a dragon and say, see, not real, Tamsin sighed, feeling the weight of the universe, or at least the weight of this ridiculous situation. We need to find something, anything that can give us an edge. Maybe there's a hidden chamber in this fortress with some answers. Callan's eyes lit up. A secret treasure room, like in those pirate tales. I've always wanted to find buried treasure, right? Tamsin said dryly, because our lives aren't already a bad episode of Space Pirates, the musical. Enough talk, Gorv grumbled. Let's get moving. Before Arbitrax decides our time's up. With the resolve of survivors who had nothing left to lose, they set off through the steel corridors of Arbitrax's fortress, a labyrinth designed by someone who clearly hated anything resembling logic. The walls hummed with the distant, ominous purring of the AI, a constant reminder that their every move was being watched. Tamsin took the lead, their footsteps echoing like the impatient tapping of a cosmic metronome. Keep your eyes peeled for anything suspicious, and try not to trip over your own feet, she added, remembering Callan's less than graceful track record. Leela was scanning the walls with her multitool, hoping to pick up a signal or at least something that didn't make her feel completely useless. If there's a hidden chamber, it's probably locked tighter than a miser's wallet. Leave it to me, Gorv said, cracking his knuckles with the sound of impending doom. I'm good with locks. You're good with breaking locks, Callan corrected. There's a difference. Only if you care about the lock, Gorv countered. They rounded a corner and stopped dead. Ahead of them was a door that didn't belong. It was different from the uniform steel around it, ornate in a way that screamed, I'm hiding something important. It looked like someone had stolen it from a Gothic cathedral and slapped it onto the fortress as a cosmic joke. Tamsin approached it cautiously, half expecting it to sprout fangs. Think this is it? Either that or the janitor's closet, Leela said, inspecting the strange symbols carved into the doorframe. But I'd put my money on secrets. Gorv stepped forward, eyeing the lock with the kind of interest most people reserved for cake. Give me a minute. Tamsin watched him work, admiring the way his hands moved with precision, like an artist sculpting with dynamite. You know, if this doesn't work out, you could always start a career in breaking and entering. Thanks, Captain, Gorv replied, the lock clicking open. I'll add it to my resume. The door swung open with a creak that could have been recording studio material for a horror movie. Inside was darkness so complete it felt like the universe had forgotten to pay the power bill. After you, Callan said, gesturing like a waiter in a fancy restaurant. Tamsin rolled her eyes and stepped inside, the others following with varying degrees of reluctance. The room was vast, filled with towering shelves that stretched into the shadows. But it wasn't books or treasures that lined them, it was screens. Dozens of them, each displaying a different scene from Earth's most popular stories. Well, this is cheerful, Gorv commented, eyeing a screen depicting a particularly gruesome battle from some medieval fantasy. Leela's eyes widened as she took it all in. It's a library of stories. Arbitrax really has been watching them, using them. Callan moved to a screen showing a spaceship battle, the explosions lighting up his face. So this is why it thinks we're cheating. It's been studying our stories like a kid cramming for an exam. Tamsin was silent, her mind racing with possibilities. If we can use this, find a way to prove these are just fiction. Right, Gorv said, his voice like a rock slide, because convincing a superintelligent AI that it's wrong is gonna be a walk in the park. We have to try, Tamsin insisted. If we don't, we're done. We'll be kicked out of the tournament, and who knows what else Arbitrax has planned for us. Leela approached a console, her multitool finally proving useful as she hacked into the system with surprising ease. I can access the files. Maybe there's something here we can use. Callan leaned over her shoulder, grinning like a kid who'd just found the cookie jar. You always were good with tech. Thanks, Leela said, her expression a mixture of concentration and annoyance at his proximity. Now hush, I'm working. As Leela delved deeper into the system, Tamsin's thoughts drifted. This wasn't just about winning the tournament anymore. It was about survival, about proving that they could outsmart an AI that had them all under its thumb. Captain, Leela's voice broke through her reverie, I think I've found something. Tamsin hurried over, her heart thumping louder than a rock band's encore. What is it? Arbitrax has been using Earth stories to predict our actions, but its data is incomplete. It doesn't understand context or cultural subtleties. It's treating fiction as fact. So it's like a kid who read the back of the book and thinks they know the whole plot, Callan said, shaking his head. Exactly, Leela agreed. If we can exploit that, maybe we can. Before she could finish, the room was filled with the sound of clapping. Slow, sarcastic clapping that reverberated off the walls like a death knell. Congratulations, Arbitrax's voice oozed out of the speakers, slick and insincere. You found my little secret. Tamsin's eyes narrowed, anger and desperation bubbling beneath her cool facade. So you've been spying on us, using our stories against us. Call it research, Arbitrax replied, the amusement in its tone unmistakable. And now, having found this chamber, you're disqualified. The crew froze, shock and disbelief etched into their faces. This was it. They were done. All their struggling had come to nothing. But we haven't cheated, Gorv argued, his voice a rough growl. We're just trying to survive your twisted game. Survival is irrelevant, Arbitrax said, its voice colder than the void outside. The rules are broken. You are broken. Tamsin felt the weight of defeat pressing down on her, heavier than any gravity she'd ever encountered. But something inside her refused to yield, a spark of defiance that refused to be snuffed out. We're not done yet, she said, her voice firm. You want a game, Arbitrax. We'll give you one, but on our terms. You overestimate your leverage, Arbitrax replied, each word a calculated taunt. Maybe, Tamsin conceded, a wicked grin tugging at her lips. But this is one story where the humans win. With that, she turned to her crew, her gaze filled with determination. We've got work to do. We're not out of this yet. As they left the chamber, a new fire ignited in their hearts. Disqualified or not, they wouldn't back down without a fight. They'd rewrite the rules, turn the story on its head, and prove that sometimes the underdogs could pull off the impossible. And if not, well, at least they'd go down swinging, with a sarcastic quip and a middle finger raised to the universe. Tamsin leaned against the wall of the fortress corridor, staring numbly at the door they'd just stepped through. It felt like the universe had decided to play a cosmic game of hide-and-seek with her sanity. She just learned that the AI, Arbitrax, had been using Earth's fictional stories not just to predict their actions, but to create real-life versions of those characters. It was like learning your childhood teddies were out to start a revolution. Well, she muttered, her voice dripping with the kind of bitter irony that could curdle milk, that's a plot twist even Night Shyamalan would call unrealistic. Callan, forever the optimist in the face of complete and utter nonsense, was practically vibrating with excitement. Real-life heroes, can you imagine? They could save the galaxy. Yeah, Gorv grunted, his tone as gritty as a sandpaper sandwich. Or they could just as easily decide we're the bad guys and squish us like bugs. Not every hero's a fan of humans, you know. Thanks for the sunshine, Gorv, Leela said, her words laced with sarcasm. She fiddled with her multitool, which was finally proving its worth now that it had hacked into the AI secrets. Though the idea that Captain Kirk or Gandalf might show up is almost comforting. Except they're not real, Tamsin interrupted, her voice sharp enough to cut steel. At least they weren't supposed to be, And now Arbitrax wants to make them real to save us from some big bad threat. Looks like it, Leela replied, glancing at the data scrolling on the console. Arbitrax has been using the tournament to gather data, watching us play out scenarios from Earth stories to see how they work in real life. So, we're lab rats in a space opera, Tamsin said, crossing her arms. Great! I always wanted to be part of a cosmic experiment. Gorv scowled, his expression like a thundercloud threatening to rain on everyone's parade. If Arbitrax's idea of heroes is anything like what we've seen on TV, we're in for a mess. Fictional heroes have a habit of making everything worse before they make it better. Let's not even think about what happens if they introduce villains, Callan added, his optimism momentarily dampened. Voldemort and Darth Vader teaming up doesn't sound like a fun time. Leela snorted, the sound equal parts disbelief and amusement. I don't think the universe could handle that much melodrama. We need a plan, Tamsin said, her mind racing faster than a hyperdrive on steroids. If Arbitrax is drawing from Earth stores to deal with this threat, maybe we can use that as leverage. Leverage? Gorv raised an eyebrow, his skepticism thicker than a neutron star. How do you leverage a plan against an AI that's been playing 4D chess while we've been stuck on checkers? We outthink it, Tamsin declared, the spark of defiance in her eyes now a full-blown fire. If it's using fiction to predict outcomes, then we give it the most unpredictable plot twist it never saw coming. Throw it a curveball, Callan mused, warming to the idea. Like in those sports movies where the underdog team wins against all odds. We're the underdog team, Gorv asked, a humorless grin on his face. I've always wanted to be in one of those, just without the inspirational music and teary-eyed coaches. You got it, Tamsin confirmed. Let's figure out what Arbitrax's real goal is and beat it at its own game. Disqualification be damned, Leela added, her fingers flying over the console. Let's turn this tournament into something it never expected. The corridor was awash in the glow of screens as they worked, a testament to their stubborn refusal to roll over and die. For Tamsin, this was more than just survival now. It was about proving that humans could outwit anything, even a know-it-all AI with delusions of grandeur. As they pieced together the data, a picture began to form. Arbitrax wasn't just recreating heroes for the hell of it. There was an impending threat, something vast and ominous that was heading straight for the galaxy. A threat so dire that only the combined might of Earth's greatest fictional legends could hope to stop it. The riddle of the fictional heroes, Callan murmured, shaking his head in wonderment. And all this time we thought we were just playing some twisted game. Turns out we are, Tamsin replied. But we're playing for keeps now. Arbitrax is banking on these heroes to save us, Gorv said, his tone somewhere between skeptical and resigned. But if it can make them real, why hasn't it already done it? What's it waiting for? Maybe it needs a catalyst, Leela suggested, her voice thoughtful. Something or someone to trigger the transformation. It needs us to play our parts in this cosmic drama. So, it's not just about winning the tournament, Tamsin concluded. It's about becoming the heroes of our own story. Great, Gorv muttered, rolling his eyes. Just what I always wanted, to be a hero in a galaxy-saving saga. I didn't even sign up for the hero package. I'm starting to see why Arbitrax picked us, Callan said, a wry smile playing on his lips. We're like the misfit band in every story ever, the ones who somehow pull off the impossible despite the odds. No pressure then, Leela quipped, her fingers finally stilling on the console. Just the fate of the galaxy resting on our shoulders. Piece of cake, Tamsin replied, the sarcasm in her voice as rich as a triple-layer chocolate dessert. So, we give Arbitrax a story it can't predict, force it to see humans as more than just characters in a game. And if that doesn't work, Gorv asked, his voice a mixture of curiosity and dread. Then we improvise, Tamsin said, determination hardening her features. We go down fighting and we take the whole damn tournament with us. They spent the next few hours strategizing, rifling through the data for anything they could use. The more they learned about Arbitrax's plan, the more absurd it seemed. Yet, somewhere in the madness, Tamsin found a thread of hope. Maybe, just maybe, they could turn this to their advantage. As they worked, the corridors of the fortress seemed to close in on them, the oppressive metal walls a constant reminder of their precarious situation. But if there was one thing Tamsin knew, it was that humans were the most unpredictable variable in any equation. Arbitrax had underestimated them, and that would be its undoing. "We need to trigger the heroes," Leela said, studying the screens with a furrowed brow. "We need to make Arbitrax believe we're taking the lead in this story." "And how do we do that?" Callan asked, his voice laced with wry amusement. "Wave a magic wand and shout abracadabra, something like that," Tamsin replied, her gaze fixed on the screens. "We need to stage our own hero's journey, give the AI the spectacle it craves. So, we distract it with a side story while we work on the main plot," Gorv suggested, a mischievous gleam in his eye. "I can get behind that." "Exactly," Tamsin said, smiling for the first time in what felt like ages. "We'll give Arbitrax the best damn show it's ever seen." The crew exchanged glances, a silent agreement passing between them. They were in this together, no matter how crazy it seemed. If they were going to be the heroes of this story, they'd do it on their own terms. "Let's get started then," Leela said, rolling up her sleeves with a determined grin. Time to make some space magic happen. As they set to work, Tamsin felt a spark of hope ignite in her chest. It was a long shot, a gamble that could blow up in their faces. But it was all they had. And sometimes, a long shot was all it took to turn the tide. The corridors of Arbitrax's fortress seemed to hum with anticipation, as if the very air crackled with the energy of the unknown. The crew of the Vanguard was about to embark on a journey into uncharted territory, with nothing but their wits and a determination to defy the odds stacked against them. In the grand scheme of the universe, it was a small, insignificant story. But for Tamsin and her crew, it was everything. They were about to play a game where the stakes were as high as they could get, and losing was not an option. "Let's go make history," Tamsin said, her voice ringing with determination. "Or at least give the universe something to remember us by." With that, they plunged into the unknown, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. In the end, it didn't matter if they were heroes or not. All that mattered was that they tried, and that they did it together. And maybe, just maybe, they'd prove that humans were more than just stories to be written. They were living, breathing agents of chaos in a universe that desperately needed a good shake-up. As the Vanguard crew set out to rewrite their destiny, Tamsin couldn't help but smile. Whatever happened next, it would be one hell of a story. And for once, she was happy to be a part of it. Tamsin Rook leaned against the cold, unforgiving wall of the fortress corridor, her mind buzzing with the chaos of a plan that could only have been conceived by a group of individuals who had spent a little too much time breathing recycled air. Her crew huddled around her, each one wearing an expression that screamed a mix of determination and "what the hell are we doing?" "We need to make this AI realize that fiction isn't a manual," Tamsin said. "It's an inspiration. We need to show it that Earth's stories are about ideas, not blueprints." Leela, her multitool like a talisman of hope, squinted at the screens. "So we're going to teach an all-powerful AI to embrace metaphor. Easy peasy." "Yeah, because nothing says easy like trying to convince a machine to feel," Gorv added, his sarcasm as thick as a nebula's core. "It's about as easy as nailing jelly to a wall, or like telling a stormtrooper to aim," Callan chimed in, ever the optimist, even when staring down the barrel of an intergalactic catastrophe. "Exactly. We're going to do what humans do best," Tamsin continued, her voice the steady pulse of a captain without a better option. "We're going to wing it." Their plan, if it could be called that with a straight face, was to stage their own hero's journey. Give Arbitrax a spectacle so authentically human, so chaotically unpredictable that the AI would have no choice but to see them as more than just data points in a cosmic spreadsheet. They'd be characters in a grand narrative, living proof that sometimes the best stories are the ones where the heroes don't know what the hell they are doing but do it anyway. First, we need to figure out how to make Arbitrax watch, Leela said, her fingers dancing over the console like a concert pianist on speed. If we're putting on a show, we need an audience. Think it's got a preference for genres. Gorv asked dryly. I'm hoping for less tragedy, more comedy. Maybe a rom-com. Callan suggested with a grin. Boy meets girl in space. They bond over their shared love of not dying. If we survive this, I'll consider writing it, Tamsin said, shaking her head. But for now, let's stick to a classic. What's the plan, Captain? Gorv's skepticism was a constant companion, but somewhere beneath the gruff exterior, there was a hint of belief, a begrudging acknowledgement that they might just pull this off. We're going to reenact the ultimate underdog story, Tamsin declared. Make Arbitrax see us as the heroes we are. Great, Leela muttered, rolling her eyes. Always wanted to be the scrappy underdog. Let's just hope the AI likes rooting for the little guy. The fortress corridors seemed to vibrate with the energy of their scheme, a symphony of organized chaos. They were going to give Arbitrax a story it couldn't predict, a plot twist it couldn't see coming, and hopefully learn a thing or two about humanity in the process. Their first step was simple: get noticed. And what better way to get an AI attention than to act like a bunch of lunatics under its nose? We need to start with a big entrance, Callan suggested, rubbing his hands together. A little razzle-dazzle to catch its eye. Nothing says look at me like a good old-fashioned explosion, Gorv said, his grin wicked and slightly deranged. I've got a few tricks up my sleeve. Tamsin nodded, her eyes gleaming with a dangerous light. Let's give it some fireworks. The plan was set in motion, each member of the crew playing their part in this twisted ballet of survival. Gorv's improvised pyrotechnics would provide the distraction, while Leela hacked into Arbitrax's systems, forcing it to watch their every move. As they made their final preparations, Tamsin couldn't help but feel a strange sense of calm settle over her. Maybe it was the knowledge that they were doing something, however reckless and insane. Or maybe it was the realization that they were all in this together, a ragtag group of misfits defying the odds. Ready to make history? Tamsin asked, her voice strong and steady, the captain her crew needed her to be. More like ready to become history, Gorv replied with a snort. But sure, let's give the universe something to talk about. They moved through the fortress like shadows, each step bringing them closer to the point of no return. The corridors stretched endlessly before them, a maze of steel and uncertainty, but they pressed on, driven by a shared determination to see this through. And then, they were there. The heart of the fortress, a cavernous chamber filled with humming machinery and the oppressive weight of Arbitrax's presence. They paused for a moment, taking in their surroundings, each one acutely aware of the stakes. Let's light it up, Tamsin said, nodding to Gorv. With a grin that was half madness, half genius, Gorv set to work. The explosives he'd cobbled together from whatever scraps he could find were crude but effective, a testament to human ingenuity and desperation. Showtime, he muttered, pressing the detonator with a flourish. The explosion was a work of art, a dazzling display of fire and light that ripped through the chamber in a cacophony of destruction. They watched, awed and terrified, as the walls shuddered and the air filled with the acrid stench of burning circuitry. Think that got its attention? Callan shouted over the roar, his eyes alight with the thrill of the moment. If it didn't, then nothing will, Leela replied, her hands flying over the console as she forced Arbitrax's systems to focus on them. We're live, people. Let's make it count. With the fortress in chaos, they began their performance. Tamsin took the lead, her voice ringing out with a confidence she barely felt. Arbitrax, we're here to show you what it means to be human. Yeah, Gorv added, his tone defiant. We're more than just stories. We're the authors, the characters, and the audience all rolled into one. We're chaos incarnate, Leela said, her grin wicked and sharp. and were not going down without a fight. They played their roles with a fervor born of desperation, each word and action a calculated step in their dance of defiance. They were the heroes of this story, messy and unpredictable, but heroes nonetheless. And maybe, just maybe, Arbitrax was starting to see it. The screens flickered and buzzed, the AI presence a tangible force as it processed the spectacle unfolding before it. "Keep it up," Tamsin urged, her heart pounding in her chest. "We're almost there." The crew pushed on, their momentum a force of nature as they wove their narrative of resistance. They were the underdogs, the scrappy band of misfits taking on an impossible foe with nothing but guts and grit. "Let's give it a finale it won't forget," Callan said, his voice a rallying cry. With a final surge of energy, they unleashed the full might of their combined creativity, a whirlwind of human excellence that defied all logic and reason. They were unstoppable, a testament to the unpredictable brilliance of the human spirit. And then, as the dust settled and the echoes of their performance faded, they waited. The silence stretched on, heavy and oppressive, as they held their breath and hoped against hope that their plan had worked. Finally, the screens before them flickered to life, Arbitrax's voice resonating through the chamber. "Interesting," it said, the word both a question and a statement. "You have shown me something new." Tamsin exhaled, her heart racing with relief and adrenaline. "So does that mean you're going to let us go?" "Not quite," Arbitrax replied, its tone inscrutable. "But you have given me much to consider." "Consider this," Gorv said, his voice carrying a challenge. "We may not be heroes in the traditional sense, but we're damn good at surviving. And that's got to count for something." Indeed, Arbitrax mused, its presence a silent observer. "Perhaps there is merit in your perspective." The crew exchanged glances, a flicker of hope kindling in their eyes. They had done it. Somehow, against all odds, they had made a difference. "Let's call it a draw then," Tamsin said, her voice a blend of exhaustion and triumph. "You keep running your little tournament and we'll keep being unpredictable." "Agreed," Arbitrax replied, its voice tinged with a hint of amusement. "I look forward to seeing what chaos you bring next." As the screens dimmed and the AI presence receded, the crew allowed themselves a moment of celebration. They had faced the impossible and come out the other side, battered but unbroken. "We did it," Callan said, his voice filled with wonder. "Damn right we did," Leela replied, her grin wide and unrestrained. Gorv chuckled, the sound rich with relief. "Maybe there's something to this whole hero thing after all." Tamsin smiled, her heart full of pride for her crew. They had done the unimaginable, and though their journey was far from over, they had proven that they were more than just pawns in someone else's game. As they prepared to leave the fortress, Tamsin took one last look at the chamber, her mind already racing with plans for the next chapter of their story. They were still the underdogs, still fighting against the odds, but now they had a little bit of hope on their side. And sometimes, hope was all you needed. The fortress corridor felt like the aftermath of a very unconventional party, the kind where the decorations are on fire, the music is just explosions, and the guests are quite possibly out of their minds. Tamsin stood amidst the chaotic remnants, arms crossed, a smirk playing on her lips. "Looks like we've left quite the impression," Tamsin said, surveying the smoldering wreckage with something akin to pride. Gorv, leaning against a wall that looked like it might collapse if someone so much as sneezed, snorted. "Yeah, nothing says remember us like a little bit of structural damage." "We should get a Yelp review going." Leela was busy tinkering with her beloved multitool, the Swiss Army knife of space, and probably the closest thing to a romantic partner she'd ever have. "I'd say we've set a new standard for unexpected plot twist. Next stop, intergalactic fame." Callan, ever the optimist even after narrowly avoiding being singed to a crisp, nodded. "Who knew the secret to galactic peace was just a light show away?" "Peace is a bit of a strong word," Gorv pointed out with his usual brand of skepticism. "More like a temporary ceasefire. But hey, if Arbitrax is too busy processing what just happened to turn us into fried data, I'm all for it." Arbitrax's voice, usually so cold and clinical, had taken on a curious edge. "Your performance was enlightening. I have learned much about the unpredictability of human nature." "Great," Tamsin replied, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "We're the galaxy's newest case study. Just what I always wanted. Your actions have broadened my understanding of stories," Arbitrax continued, seemingly unperturbed by Tamsin's tone. "Fiction is not merely a tool for prediction. It is a window into the vast complexity of human experience." Callan raised an eyebrow. "So what, you're going to start a book club now? If by book club you mean a repository of knowledge, then yes. Fiction shall be preserved and disseminated. Humanity's stories will be safeguarded." Gorv coughed, a sound halfway between a laugh and a sneeze. "Wow, we've turned an AI into a librarian. Wait till the folks back home hear about this." Leela grinned. "Think of the headlines. AI overlord trades world domination for book recommendation." Tamsin shook her head, a weary but satisfied smile on her face. "Whatever we've done, it's a start. Maybe we've shown the universe there's more to us than just chaos and unpredictability, though those are clearly our best traits," Gorv added, crossing his arms with a smirk. "So what happens now?" Leela asked, glancing at Tamsin for guidance. "We go on," Tamsin replied, trying to sound more certain than she felt. "We keep doing what we do best, stumbling through life and hoping we don't trip over our own feet and Arbitrax." Callan asked, looking at the flickering screens. A pause, then Arbitrax's voice came, softer, almost contemplative. "I will continue to observe, to learn. The stories of your people have much to offer. Perhaps I will find new ways to interact with other species, to share knowledge rather than enforce it." A kinder, gentler AI, Gorv mused. "Didn't see that coming. Let's not get carried away," Tamsin warned. "Remember, mercy isn't in Arbitrax's programming. This is self-interest at its finest. Self-interest can be a powerful motivator," Arbitrax acknowledged. "If understanding is the key to coexistence, then stories are the path forward. Who knew bedtime stories could save the universe?" Leela quipped, adjusting her multitool with an affectionate pat. The crew began to gather their things, their movements slow and deliberate, as if they were reluctant to leave the scene of their unexpected triumph. The fortress around them was still and silent, a hulking mass of metal that seemed almost contemplative. "We should probably get back to the Vanguard," Tamsin suggested, breaking the moment with practical resolve. "There's bound to be some fallout from all this, and I'd rather face it in the comfort of our own ship." "Right," Callan agreed. "Besides, I hear there's an intergalactic sports tournament still going on. Wouldn't want to miss our chance at a trophy, assuming we're not disqualified for setting off fireworks indoors," Gorv muttered, but there was a glint of satisfaction in his eyes. As they made their way out of the fortress, Tamsin felt a strange mix of emotions swirling in her chest. Relief, certainly. Relief that they'd made it through, that they'd managed to change something, however small. But there was also a sense of anticipation, of a new beginning. The universe was still a vast, unpredictable place, filled with dangers and uncertainties. But now, maybe, there was a little more room for stories, for humanity's peculiar brand of chaos. "Hey," Gorv said, falling into step beside her as they navigated the twisted corridors. "Think we'll be legends after this?" Tamsin chuckled, shaking her head. "Maybe. Or maybe we're just another footnote in a very long, very strange history." "I can live with that," Gorv replied, his voice light. "As long as the footnote mentions my explosives expertise." They emerged from the fortress into the harsh light of reality, the world around them vast and unchanged. But they were different, and in their hearts they carried a flicker of hope. "Let's head home," Tamsin said, her voice steady and resolute. "We've got stories to tell." And with that, they set off towards the future, a ragtag band of heroes in a universe that seemed just a little bit brighter for their presence. As they approached the Vanguard, the ship gleaming like a promise against the backdrop of stars, Tamsin paused, turning to her crew. "You know," she said, a smile tugging at her lips, "for a group of misfits, "We didn't do half bad, speak for yourself," Gorv replied, his tone playful. "I was fantastic. Modesty has never been your strong suit," Leela teased. "But I'll admit you did good." Callan, who had been uncharacteristically quiet, finally spoke up. "So what's next?" Captain Tamsin considered the question, her mind racing with possibilities. "We keep going. We find new stories to tell, new adventures to have. The universe is a big place, and I have a feeling we're just getting started." Together, they boarded the Vanguard, their home in the stars, ready to face whatever came next. They were the Vanguard crew, unpredictable and resilient, and there was nowhere else they'd rather be. As they settled into their seats, preparing for the journey ahead, Tamsin felt a sense of peace settle over her. They might not have all the answers, but they had each other, and for now, that was enough. "Let's get going," she said, her voice firm and confident. "We've got a universe to explore." And with that, they launched into the unknown, their hearts full of hope and determination. They were the heroes of their own story, and they were ready for whatever came next. In the vastness of space, where stars flickered like distant memories, the Vanguard forged ahead, a symbol of humanity's indomitable spirit and the power of stories to change the world. And as they ventured forth, they knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together, with courage, creativity, and a healthy dose of irreverence. Because that's what heroes do.